We're in Bobby's world, baby. Did you think you could keep this man down? Old Bobby, did you think you could force him to have a bad dating life by photoshopping him as the devil and he wouldn't fight back? Did you think you could stop him by simply buying his company? Well, you've all been a cog in Bobby's great plan. That's right, Bobby Kotick is one of the lead people who could be buying TikTok. Bobby's world, baby.
On your feet, maggots!
If you're a bit lost, that's fair. This story is progressing very fast at the moment, and while everything in this video will be accurate at the time of release, I will be linking to any major changes down in the pinned comments below. So if you've clicked on this video, you know what TikTok is. It's the short-form video website that has managed to develop an algorithm so good that it can peer into your soul. I mean, I'm only slightly exaggerating. It has the highest average user time spent on that app per day than any other app, sitting at 82 minutes, with the second runner only being 41 minutes with Facebook. And while they may have slightly less users, they have way more interaction. Not to mention, in the US alone, over 150 million people use the app every month, with over half the adults aged 18 to 34 on the platform. So, TikTok is owned by a company called ByteDance, a major Chinese tech company and one of the very few Chinese tech companies that have gotten big around the world. I mean, it's currently valued at roughly 300 billion USD, or 268 billion if you want to be particular about it, all while being privately owned. The only Chinese tech company which is larger is Tencent, but even that is publicly traded. So China has this thing called the Great Firewall, and they simply don't allow certain information into the country. It is for that reason that Facebook, Google, YouTube are all banned. This information ban is why when companies start operating within the region, they start to act really weird. For example, when Blizzard banned a Hearthstone player when he said pro-Hong Kong sentiments during a tournament, it's why we got this very odd clip of the NBA hard panning away from a child holding a pro-Hong Kong card. It's so they don't upset the Chinese government and lose access to that market. To that end, the leading idea in China is that they would never have a global social media company, merely homegrown ones which copy existing companies. That was until ByteDance flipped this assumption on its head with TikTok, something that is incredibly successful, and something that is culturally important to China, and something that's important to President Xi Jinping. It also helps that the company is worth more than Shell, more than Coke, and so the Americans have started to get a bit worried about something so powerful being in the hands of America's adversary. This could be a problem. It is the most used app by people on their phones, as well as the place being a cesspit for misinformation. According to Pew Research, in 2020, 22% of TikTok users were getting their news from this app. This rose to 43% in late 2023, which means 14% of adults in America are getting their news from TikTok. Wisconsin's Republican Mike Gallagher, who co-authored the bill, said that the US could not, quote, take the risk of having a dominant news platform in America controlled or owned by a company that is beholden to the Chinese Communist Party, end quote. It's not like we haven't seen social media used for disinformation before. The fact of the matter is, right now, you, yes, I'm talking directly to you, dear viewer, are the target of a large, expensive, and sophisticated social media attack campaign to make you feel bitter, lonely, and useless. Most people fail to understand how disinformation works, and they think they can spot it. Spoilers, you probably can't. I'll give you a few examples. This video claiming to pour bleach on men's legs for manspreading is in fact fake. It's Russian disinformation. It's not real. There is this Blacktivist account with more followers than the official BLM account, which has been linked to the Russian government. In 2019, the most popular black-orientated Facebook page was named, quote, "My baby daddy ain't shit," end quote, which posted regular memes attacking black men and government welfare workers. This was found out to be a large troll network operating in Eastern Europe and largely financed by Russia, as reported by MIT. China has been using AI to join this space. According to the New York Times, they are performing, quote, "spamouflage," end quote, to divide Americans by combining AI with real images to exacerbate current political and social tensions. And so, with the 150 million users, the US is worried that China will radicalize them. This worry is compounded by worse and worse headlines coming out, like, quote, the alarming reality, 64% of teenagers would trade voting for a year for TikTok, end quote. Although to be fair, the underlying survey that they referenced in that article did not say TikTok, it just said social media. We also got headlines like, teens who are addicted to TikTok experience worse depression and anxiety and in turn reduced working memory capacity. Although to be fair, TikTok doesn't seem particularly bad when compared to other social media websites. It merely targets the most at-risk age groups. But the US government isn't passing an act called the Social Media and Mental Health Act, nor is it banning all social media. In a rare display of unanimous agreement across party lines in an election year, which makes it all the more impressive, the House Energy and Commerce Committee voted 50-0 to advance the bill to the House. And the bill's name? Protecting Americans from Foreign Adversary Controlled Applications Act, or PAFAVARACA, which really just rolls off the tongue. It is a relatively short legal document, only 14 pages long, which I have read through. And while lawmakers have gone out of their way to stress that this law doesn't just apply to TikTok, the law basically boils down to, if this law gets passed, ByteDance will have 180 days to divest themselves away from TikTok. Failure to do so will result in all ByteDance related products being banned from a country. Make no mistake, that foreign adversary clause in the title is the main driver behind this. If this was a French app, I doubt we would be seeing any of this bill. But we see other bills like this hit the committee floor all the time, but they never really amount to anything and just die a death on the floor. No, the interesting part of this story is how fast they got this passed. Although, to be fair, TikTok was out there with a shovel digging their own grave. They did not take to this bill lying down and instead decided to put their users to work. They sent a push notification to all 150 million American users telling them that their government was going to ban them from the country, asking them to call their representatives as well as providing them with the tools to do so. And boy, did they start calling. Olivia Bay reported that, quote, a senior House Dem staffer says that this is also having a backfiring effect with their office, as they're getting lit up with TikTok-driven calls, tweeting herself saying, one well-connected Republican tells me they are hearing from officers and that this TikTok campaign is backfiring, increasing members who were on the fence and are now leaning towards voting for Gallagher's bill. All this seems to have done is scare the politicians more. Their fears had been justified. TikTok was weaponizing the American general public. This bill was sent to the House of Representatives, where once again it passed surprisingly quickly with a vote of 352-65 to force a divestiture of TikTok away from its Chinese owners. Now it just needs approval in the Senate to get to Joe Biden's desk, where he has signified that he will sign it. Unsurprisingly, this has had a lot of American-based TikTokers running scared, so I wouldn't be surprised if we see them trying to migrate their audience to more stable platforms. So, are these fears justified? Is China really using Americans' data against them? Well, at time of writing, there is nothing to suggest that China has access to Americans' data. That's not to say they don't have access to user data. There is evidence to suggest that they use this data to track Hong Kong protesters. There's also evidence to suggest that around the Taiwanese election, they were promoting TikToks that were positive of a candidate that they preferred. There was also a situation where a TikTok employee used access to sensitive data to find the IP address of a journalist, as reported by the Wall Street Journal. Although this employee hasn't been shown to be connected to China, as well as TikTok distancing themselves from said employee. There is also an argument that none of the big American companies can compete with Chinese company in China, so why should America allow Chinese companies to compete against American companies in America? But personally, I don't find this argument particularly convincing.
Now 50, 1150. I'm 1100.
So, Will this law come into effect? It certainly hasn't been smooth sailing so far, and like I said at the beginning, this is not the first time that the US has tried to ban the app. Trump famously tried to use an executive order to ban the app back in 2020, but the courts overruled him. Montana recently blocked TikTok for the whole state, only to once again be overruled by a judge. The ACLU, or American Civil Liberties Union, have even warned that if this bill were to pass, it would die a similar death as it results Americans' right to free speech. There's also the fact that America is building up for the election, where the country starts to get a bit schizophrenic about what they want. Their current choices is to vote for a man who invented fire, or see if you can run a country from county jail. So, as Trump tried to get the app banned during his tenure as president, you would think that there wouldn't be a problem. But instead, he tweeted, put out a statement on Truth Social saying, quote, "If you get rid of TikTok, Facebook and Zuckerschmuck will double their business. I don't want Facebook, who cheated the people in the last election, doing better. They are the true enemy of the people." End quote. And he might be right. Back in 2020, India banned TikTok from the country over security concerns, at which point Instagram users shot up as expected. We've also seen the rise of homegrown apps performing really well within the new market space, so it'll be interesting to see if the American markets act in a similar fashion if the large social media platforms are so entrenched that they will simply absorb these objected users. However, it's still a bit weird for the ex-president to turn his opinion on the matter. I mean, sure, he might not like Zuck. He might even be trying to attract young voters to his platform. But this is the same man who said TikTok threatened, quote, "the national security, the foreign policy, and the economy of the United States," end quote. So, what happened? Allow me to introduce you to billionaire financier Jeff Yass, who has spent the past couple of years fighting to keep TikTok on US phones. In doing so, he has spent a lot of money, meaning apart from going around and lobbying politicians trying to convince them, hell, he even went so far to create a foundation called the American Center for Growth, whose number one shtick is to make sure that TikTok does not get banned. I'm not sure how that's related to American growth, but it's there. So you might be wondering, why? Money. In fact, lots and lots of money. Yass is worth 28 billion USD. 21 billion of that is currently held up in TikTok. He's banking on it having a huge IPO. So if this law gets passed and sells for low prices, he's going to lose a lot of money. You see, Mr. Yass here is a huge Republican investor. He donated $47 million to Republican candidates, which is how I imagine he got access to Mr. Trump in the first place. But Donald got a lot of pushback from Republican senators. He has since regulated his position.
I could have banned TikTok. I had it banned, just about. I could have gotten it done. But I said, you know what? But I'll leave it up to you. I didn't push them too hard because, let them do their own research and development. And they decided not to do it. But as you know, I was at the point where I could have gotten it done if I wanted to. I sort of said, you guys decide, you make that decision, because it's a tough decision to make.
Now, as you can tell from my voice, I'm not American. And while I try to keep a passing glance on what's going on in that country, the following might just be political ignorance. So please comment down in the description below. But this is the first time I've seen Trump forced to moderate by the Republican Party. My previous impression is that he had this party by the balls. I mean, this is the guy who won the Nevada ballot without even being on the ballot. So with neither of the big players standing in the way of this bill, I say there's a high chance of the law going through. But the question remains, who will buy it? The other big players in this space can't buy it for obvious antitrust reasons. And do you know where that leads? Right back to him. That's right. It's Bobby's World, baby. Bobby Kotick, formerly of Activision Blizzard, is reported to be the lead bidder. I mean, say what you like about him destroying the soul of a gaming company, but the man is good at what he does. Look at this line. It didn't even go down for the 2008 financial crisis. And there is also Mr. Wonderful himself from Shark Tank. the Americans' Dragon Den, who went on Fox News to say this.
Let me preface my remarks by saying I admire the Chinese people, the advancements in culture they brought over the thousands of years. I just don't trust the Chinese government, and it turns out either does Congress. Everybody knows it leaks data to the Chinese. I mean, it's not a secret. It's been around for years. I'm going to put up my hand and say I'll buy it, and I'll tell you why. I'll guarantee the servers are on American soil. I'll guarantee we'll close the Chinese back doors. I have no agenda here other than to make this platform safe for Americans to use.
And yet, even if, and that's a big if, the ban jumps through all these hoops, they tick all these boxes, they find a buyer, and they do everything correctly, it will not be the same TikTok as before the ban. The last time the US moved to try and force TikTok to sell, China passed a new law which essentially protected TikTok's algorithm under national security. So if a purchase does go through, it'll be interesting to see if they can keep that high user base, or if it will fall off quickly because they only owe a badge. There is also the fact that this company is important to China. It's important to Xi Jinping, and they are not going to take having a $300 billion company kneecapped by the Americans kindly. So I would not be surprised if we see some retaliation against existing American companies that operate within the region, like Apple or Nvidia. So, will the bill pass? Probably. Will the law stick? I'm not sure. Will the app ever be the same? No. If you've liked this video, why not check out some of my others? Do you know why countries are kicking out or banning streaming platforms like Kick or Twitch? Or if that doesn't float your boat, how about finding out why Palworld is legal? Either way, hit that like and subscribe button. Bye.